It's everyone's favorite time of the week, the Reddit Questions from Overwatch University. Apparently, it's everyone's favorite series, according to the average views. So here we go for this week. What's with the obsession in-game with the KD and numbers? I'm recently back to the game. I was top 500 in Overwatch 1 as a support main on EU. I have been doing placements and I've noticed so many players calling each other out over the numbers. It seemed to me in Overwatch 1 this wasn't present. I mean, you all know you can cheese numbers if you just heal bot the tank or play an AoE damage spec in closer maps, etc, etc. I don't think in most scenarios more numbers equals better. We've had plenty of games where there's been lower numbers, but we won with ultimate economy, for example. I got accused as throwing when we lost a team fight, and then I jumped off the map in order to respawn with my team. Didn't that used to be best practice in some cases? I haven't played since Jeff Kaplan left, but I've been having fun. Where has this transition of kills and deaths being so important came from? And for those that don't, and for those that care, it's currently predicting me in Diamond 2 with my current support placements. Haven't done any other roles yet. All right, let's unpack this one by one. To answer the top question, what's up with the obsession? Well, you haven't played since Overwatch 1, and we obviously have a scoreboard now. In Overwatch 1, your context was only the medal system, bronze, silver, and gold medals, which is only relative to you. You would not know if anybody else was holding any of the damage medals or healing done medals. You could ask and be like, hey, I got gold damage, so like who the hell's messing up, especially if you're playing like a support or whatever. So scoreboard has changed the way people look at that. And then number two, you're not wrong. You're correct in the assessment where like there's been plenty of games with lower numbers, but we won. I don't think in most scenarios more numbers equals better. Correct, because scoreboard stats are contextual. If I'm playing Ana with a Reinhardt, I'm going to out-heal the enemy Ana who's playing with like a Wrecking Ball, for example, because I have to pump my Rein as Ana, but like the ball is going to be rolling around and the enemy Ana is going to have less healing done overall. Most people are going to be a little bit scoreboard illiterate, data illiterate, and don't understand context. And, you know, it's just a video game. You have a whole big population of players who don't know how to analyze and understand scoreboard with context and whatnot. And it's not their fault. This is just what happens when you cast a wide net of players. Not everybody understands the intricacies of that, but that is basically where the obsession comes from. But one last thing, you said I jumped off the map in order to respawn with the team. Didn't that used to be best practice and you got accused of throwing? Yes, that's still best practice. In fact, it's even better now because you can catch the wave respawn, which was a new mechanic added in Season 12 competitive, where if you die within a certain window, you spawn together with your team. It is the best practice. The person you're playing with just doesn't understand that, unfortunately. Okay, next question. How do you guys get such good aim? Hey everyone, as the title says, I feel like I have such a hard issue being good at aim. I'm no bronze, but with my aim, I'm not no bronze with my aim, but I feel like I could easily be in high diamond if I had aim. I used to be really good at COD and was ranked top 2000 in the world in most game modes, but for some reason, this game's aim is so much harder. I do the Vaxta game code and hop on Ash and just try, but again, I feel like it's just not doing anything because I feel it's so inconsistent. The games that I top frag really hard, I feel like it was just luck. Okay, this is a bit subjective, right? Aim is dependent on the player, but aim is not just how you can move your crosshair to the enemy. The other battle of aim is predicting the enemy movement. You were good at COD because the physics and the movement of the game are a little bit different and probably suited your aim style a little bit more. In Overwatch, I mean, you got Juno speed, you got Lucio speed, so people are moving like this. You got a Winston jumping up in the air with a head hitbox with the parabolic arc. He can duck his head. You got Wrecking Ball spinning around like this. The game's physics are way faster, way more rapid, and require a lot more dynamic assessment of where to move your crosshair according to how the enemies are moving. And then you also have to be strafing in this game. You can't be sitting there in like Call of Duty with just aim down sight to not move yourself. So you have to aim. You have to compensate because you're moving your body, which means your aim and crosshair will move, and you also have to predict the enemies. Hey, aiming in this game isn't very easy, and that's why a lot of people do gravitate to easier heroes, mechanically, aim-wise, like Moira, Ryan, Winston, and whatnot. But hey, I'm here to help you. You use the Vaxta game code, that's fantastic. Step one, do what you've done with COD, where you stand still and you just move your arm and try to like follow and track the enemy. And step two is to add your own movement while doing the same thing. And step three, add your crouches while you're strafing and a more unpredictable strafe while doing it. You're on the right track, but nothing beats real game experience. Like going into the Vaxta game mode is like, you know, sitting in a basketball like empty gym and just shooting free throws or like shooting threes. But when you're in a real game situation where there's hands in your faces at the 3-point line, That's going to be your best practice. This is good to still do, but nothing beats true experience in my opinion. But yeah, hopefully that answered that question. Another thing is you could probably change your like ergonomic setup. I think I mentioned this before, how I set myself up, but here. All right, this is my table. This is my table. This is my chair. This is my armrest. So what I do is I plant my elbow on the armrest. Some people aim like this with their whole forearm on the table, but that just like chafes the mouse pad in my opinion. I like elbow anchored onto the armrest, neutral grip on my mouse so my wrist is neutral so I don't get any carpal tunnel, and all I do is pivot my elbow when I'm doing major movements. My forearm isn't touching or chafing this. Elbow pivot 90 degrees, well, as close to 90 as you can. Neutral wrist, and then I do a snap like left, right on the wrist if I need to make micro adjustments, but big movements, I use my whole elbow, my whole forearm. And this to me is preserving, you know, my arm quite a bit. There's gamers, like I said, who do this, which is probably really uncomfortable for the shoulder. They do this with their like tension on their wrist the whole time, which isn't good either. Neutral everything, neutral elbow, neutral wrist. And I find this to be the most comfortable. Maybe that could help you if you have like similar body type, similar structure, similar desk height, and armrest height for your chair. Do I need to learn all the supports? My duo said that in order to be good at the game, I have to know how to play all supports. The only supports I'm good at right now are Ana, Juno, Kiri, Mercy, and Moira. I don't really have any interest learning the other heroes. They got mad that I don't like playing Lucio because I suck at wall ride and told me that I'll never be a good support player if I didn't know how to play him. Is this true? Do I need to learn all the supports, even the ones that don't appeal to me? First of all, who the hell is your duo? Who has the audacity to say that? And second of all, no, you don't need to learn all the supports. You already have 5 heroes in your pool. That's way better than like 95% of the players that I know. Most players I know gravitate towards like 3, 2, or even obviously just one trick a hero. So the fact that you have 5 is fantastic. Not playing Lucio is fine. I never learned how to play Lucio. My Lucio is terrible. But now that Juno came out, she kind of replaced the speed aspect, and I can kind of slot that in over Lucio, which has been nice for me. But I played my whole Overwatch career playing the flex supports like Ana, Kiri, BAP, and stuff. But you've got a couple of archetypes in your support pool, right? You have Mercy, and Mercy was a little bit more like passive, but then you also got the aggressive Kiri, Ana, Juno, and then you got your little flex Moira. If you're getting smacked in the game, you need to play a high survivability support. You're doing just fine. You don't need to learn all the supports. If you don't know how to wall ride and he doesn't resonate with you, who cares? Don't listen to your duo. Stop doing with that person. Person doesn't know what they're talking about. Just play your 5 heroes. Have a good time, my friend. As a support, how do I decide whether to go with the tank or to go with the DPS? I'm a gold 2 support right now, plat 5 peak earlier this season. Right now I'm struggling with my games and I'm determining the cause as being unable to decide whether to go with the tank or the DPS. Often my instinct just makes me go with the tank out of habit to try to keep them alive, even though there's just so many situations I could be going with the DPS instead, but I can't pinpoint these situations well. Really, the only way I can instinctively go with the DPS is lock-ins and Yada and juggle my balls between whoever needs healing, but for the other heroes, especially the high healing ones like Ana and BAP, I can't make the decision quick enough to not make our team fall over. How can I decide this better and as a solo queuer? This is context dependent, but generally speaking, if you have a high healing output support, this is generally speaking, especially in your average metal rank game, like Ana and BAP, you generally just kind of keep an eye on the tank. That's your priority. When you play your main supports, like Mercy, like your Lucios, you can kind of hover with the other DPS. And I know this because I scrimmed with my team when I had a team earlier this year, Overwatch. I had J3, Emong, me, Custa, and Apply, and we had Coach Spilo. If you guys are familiar with Overwatch, these are all well-known names. And the way we always paired it up was with me as Baptiste or Kiriko. I would always play with Jay and Emong. One tank, one DPS, we kind of go as a 3. And the Lucio, Custa, and Apply and the Tracer, they would be paired off. So those 2 are pretty much go with the DPS. Lucio sometimes needs to speed with the team, but in general, he can be paired off pretty well with somebody else if they're not playing alone. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, it's solo queue. You can't really go wrong as long as you have a buddy system. The safest bet is to play with the tank with your hero pool, but like if you are, again, playing Lucio and you have like a flanker that's taking a different angle, you can sort of play with them as long as you can obviously help them. The reason why the Lucio or Custa went with Apply is because the Tracer was on Apply was on Tracer. They usually take Tracer 1v1s or try to hold a specific angle, and having a backup buddy makes it way easier to take. That being said, if you're playing like, you know, Ana with like something slow like an Ashe on 2 same angles there, that might be okay, but then like if your tank gets in trouble and your other support isn't there to supplement your tank, then they can be in trouble there too. It really just depends on the context and your team comp, but maybe those examples can kind of help you make your decisions. Best thing to do is to actually try both and see which one generates more value. If your tank is falling over the moment you leave them, you probably stay with them. If your DPS is constantly dying off on the side, maybe you can go and help them, especially if you're running like Ana, KarQ, for example, two supports who can kind of do that job. KarQ can go off with them, or if you're playing Ana, you can go off with them and let your KarQ play with the tank. I'd probably do the opposite and have the KarQ take the off angle with your DPS while you play with the tank, but I digress. You know what I mean? You could just try it out and actually learn from it. There's no right answer. There's a general answer, and that can cover more situations than often that you'll run into, but it still depends. Are there any characters that are okay to one-trick? I know one-trick characters are hated quite a bit in the community, but I was wondering if there were any characters in the game that someone could one-trick and get away with it. With tanks, I don't think so, simply because of all the counter swaps they have. For support, I'm not really sure either, but for DPS, I actually think Tracer is capable of being a good one-trick. Also, maybe Echo because of her copy. At the end of the day, realistically, you can one-trick any hero in the game and hit the best, one of the highest top 500 best ranks in the game. That being said, the ones that would get you the least amount of negativity or toxicity from your teammates are one-tricking heroes that are the most versatile, the biggest generalists, the flex heroes. So for tank, I mean, right now I would say D.Va's pretty safe. D.Va fits in almost every map and every situation. There was a while where Sigma was played everywhere. Nobody really hates the Sigma one-tricks or the D.Va one-tricks, at least in my experience. But somebody would often hate a ball one-trick or a hog one-trick or a Ryan one-trick right now because they have very distinct weaknesses. And if those weaknesses are exploited based on the map or the enemy picks, you generally get flamed at. But those heroes like, you know, Sigma and D.Va are pretty safe and can slot in and be acceptable for most. For damage, you're right. Tracer is great because she honestly is the only hero that can do, you know, what she does, which is control specific angles, be super slippery. So Tracer is probably your best to one trick if you want the least amount of feedback. Maybe not so much Echo because there are ways for them to kind of shut you down. And there may be skyboxes that are pretty low depending on the map. And then for supports, probably like KarQ or Ana and Juno right now are pretty safe to one trick because they slot almost everywhere. In what situations is Illari a good pick? I like playing Illari a lot, but I struggle to find situations where she is the best support option. It feels like you're giving up too much utility compared to other supports, and depending on the enemy comp, you just never get the chance to use her ult in any impactful way. The only time I ever switch to her is if my team's DPS is severely underperforming and I feel like I need to pressure the enemy team or follow up myself. You kind of answered it right there. When is Illari a good pick? When you feel like you need to pressure the enemy team with damage. Now you say you give up on utility, but like what does utility do in Overwatch? Utility is there to enable your team to pressure and or kill the enemy. You can skip utility and just straight up kill them if you're good at Illari, and Illari has traditionally been actually overperforming according to Blizzard stats over the past like 2 seasons, and they actually had to nerf her. I remember when I mentioned that they slightly nerfed Illari's damage or something half a season ago, or was it last season, beginning of the season? I can't recall. Recently, in the last 2 months, people on TikTok, right? TikTok comments are like, why would they nerf Illari? Crying emoji, skull emoji, crying emoji. But like in solo queue and ranked, who cares about utility? You just straight up pick her and kill, and she can do just that. And honestly, her healing is underrated as well. Not utility, but it's just raw numbers, but raw numbers can confirm kills and deny kills if done right. So you can pick Illari if your aim is cracked and seriously carry yourself out more than you think. But if you just like playing a bunch of different heroes, picking her to just pressure the enemy team and picking it with a poke comp is probably your best bet. Poke being Sigma, Orisa in some cases, and yeah. What is your role's pick for recontesting the objective? The enemy team has pushed cart almost to the end and you're back in spawn after being killed the previous fight, etc, etc. Maybe it won't be worth holding the slow, fragile hero you played up until now when speed and survivability are the key. Your team is holding on, but barely. They need you back ASAP or the round or the game is lost. Look at you building the story. You decide to swap characters, but to who? As tank, I've been thinking of this lately and been wondering who I have in the pocket to quickly swap to in dire end round circumstances. Ball or Doom, Doom or Ball, but I think it's a relevant question for everyone else too, so who is your choice and why? This is a great learner question, okay? There's a couple of ways to go about this. Speed and survivability are top priority, and if I had to choose those in those categories, Doom or Ball to get back to contest first. And then for damage heroes, it'd be Tracer and Sombra. And then for supports, Lucio, KarQ can TP out instantly depending on the spawn point, sometimes Moira as well. You don't necessarily always have to pick survivability and speed. You can sometimes opt to swap for burst or kill potential. Okay, so if you already have a Doom or Ball out on the point, you may not need to swap to the Tracer. You can either stay on your hero and get your ultimate and hopefully get the kills. If your ball is spinning around and already stalling, you want something that can kill. So that's why a lot of people will actually opt for Bastion. Someone's already there. Some people have swapped to Widowmaker. Just quickly pop out of spawn, see if they can get a pocket kill. And if you're a Sombra, you don't have to necessarily go to stall the point. You go for their backline and try to hunt them down because you have the spawn distance advantage. If you can literally confirm a kill on the enemy, it's worth way more. So for speed and survivability, I listed those out. But for kills, yeah, Widow, Bastion. If you're Kiri, you go for the kills. If Moira, you fade into the backline, throw some damage orbs, and just try to sweep them off. There you go. Opinion on feeding heals to an ulting teammate. Okay, so I'm all about balanced response to teams' needs as support. So if someone's dying, I'm obviously going to try to focus them first. I also try to switch between dying teammates so that I'm just keeping everyone alive in a team fight and not healing them to 100%, so no one actually dies but might be weak for a bit. That said, I always felt that feeding heals to a teammate as soon as you hear them ult was the right move, but I was wondering what opinions on that are. Is this the move or is it not? I never really see people do this until like Diamond, and maybe I feel like it should be known, but maybe I'm wrong. Like often I'll throw a Suzu at a Reaper or Genji, even if they have more than half health, because I just sense they will die upon revival. I would say this is generally a safer play. I don't mind this play. Better safe than sorry, especially if their ult is good value. If your Reaper is obviously dying and spinning around and literally hitting nothing, I wouldn't waste a Suzu on him. But like if your Pharah is about to go for Barrage or your Cass is going for a high noon, you definitely should add resources to them, because in general they often die when they trade any kills, if they even get some. So when there was a Pharah meta for a bit as KarQ, I would literally tell my Pharah, let me know when you're about to Barrage so I can get ready to try to chuck a Suzu to help you out, because you're not wrong. They will probably die when they press their ultimate because the enemy team will try to respond to that. So this is like feeding heals or feeding resources or abilities to supplement an ulting teammate is generally the right play, because an ulting teammate has a higher chance to confirm a kill, and giving them support in a way via heals or abilities is correct. Now, not always, it depends, but it's safer. So, you know, I would say use it until you assess whether it's unnecessary, and dial it back as needed. All right, and that's it for this week's Reddit questions. Thanks for listening. See you guys next week. Peace. Michiko, we call her Michi for short. Yeah, she's a little baby. She's a little baby upstairs. She's a little precious with her baby teeth and everything.